Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the S.H.Figuarts Avengers Age of Ultron Hulk figure. This is obviously the first of the import Hulks. Figma hasn't gotten theirs out yet. We finally saw it recently, but this is the one we have to go off of so far. And it's one that most people are pretty excited about, so we're going to take a look at it. First thing we're going to do though is look at the packaging. We have a nice window package with the Hulk here, the figure itself posed in kind of a dynamic pose, and you can see some standard artwork type stuff going on. Same pose there, and some posing options which are very basic back here, and then another pose on the side. So that's the Hulk packaging and the Hulk figure itself. So let's do a height measurement. Since he's supposed to be pretty big, he is just shy of 8 inches, right around, let's say, no, he's really just shy of 8 inches, really close, which puts him at just about 20 centimeters. And if you're curious how big that is compared to another big S.H.Figuarts, one of my favorite figures, we have Broly. And Broly, next to Hulk, they're actually pretty close in size, not counting the hair and the fact that Broly has a tiny head. They're almost the exact same height. Of course, Broly is much bulkier and much bigger. And there's another reason I have Broly out here, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Accessory-wise, we don't have too much, so we can go over that really quickly. We have one head, which is the standard Hulk head, and then we have this one, which is the taking a bite out of a sandwich head. So we have those, and then we have the two fist hands, and then we have the two holding a sandwich hands. So that's about it. And by about it, I mean that's it completely. That's it. No accessories other than those. Which is fine. I don't think we need a ton for Hulk. That's probably okay. So as far as the figure goes, first impression type stuff, the paint's really nice. They did a whole lot of airbrush style paint work. The shading, you can probably tell on camera how there's tons of shading throughout all of the flesh tones. So that's really nice. Looks good. Then we have the paintwork on the pants, which is also very clean. We have the Avengers logos and the kind of maroon stripes on there. That looks pretty good. Unfortunately, there's no shading on the pants, so that's a little strange since the skin has a whole bunch, but it's not a big deal. And then we also have the toenails are painted, and so are the fingernails. And on these hands you can see them a little more obviously. So that's about it. And the sculpt work, for the most part, it's really good. It's got some really nice organic lines to it. Mostly really pleased with the sculpt work here. I like it. For the most part, I like it a lot. They did a good job with the pants. All of the line work is actually sculpted in there, and then we have those nice wrinkles, and it looks pretty good. So let's go into the articulation. The head is on a double ball peg. Very small double ball peg, but it's effective. Once you get the head on there, and they're easy to swap out by the way, we do get some gapping of course, so that's problematic, but it does provide for really nice range of motion side to side. Can't look too far up, but you can look all the way down and just move it around really nicely. We have a butterfly joint that has pretty minimal range, so I'm not sure if that's really worth having in there, to be completely honest. If you're not going to have a lot of range in the butterfly joint, then I don't know if it's really worth having to break up the sculpt work, but it is there, so if you like it, good. If not, then I don't know, it could be a downside. Then you can see in here for this joint, really strange design for this joint, and that's why I brought Broly out. I can kind of see why they did it, and we'll talk about that first, and then we'll bring out Broly to talk about that. So we have just a socket in there with a giant ball peg. Well, it's a ball hinge that ball peg connects to. So you could just move around on that peg in there, or you have the hinge, which of course pegs in and gives us a swivel also. It's kind of hard to show you that since the whole peg wants to move, but I can show you this way. So you get your bicep swivel up here, which it's okay, but it's still pretty limited since it's inside the shoulder, and the shoulder has to move around inside the butterfly socket. So your bicep swivel is pretty limited. You don't get a great range of motion out of that. This part does allow the arm to come all the way up, but we get a giant gap in there. So it's kind of disjointed. Obviously it's a joint, so it is disjointed, but it looks disjointed, and that's why I brought Broly. So I know he has giant shoulders, and some people don't like those, but that's how the figure's supposed to look, so we're going to set that aside. But the fact that he has these giant shoulders, and the joints work really well, I think that same style of joint with the socket on this part, and then just a standard ball hinge with the bicep swivel built like this, that would have suited Hulk very well. Now this is more of an animated look, so having the joint like this works. I'm assuming they just didn't want to have a cut here for the swivel, and that makes sense, I get that, but I still think something else is better than having this giant gap. I mean, you can kind of work your way around it, but not when you raise the arm up. Once you raise that up, you have a big gap if you look at it at all. So it looks good from other angles, but looking from this way, that's not very good at all. And then the limited bicep swivel, it's also just kind of a bummer. It's obviously not a huge deal, but it's not great. Elbow joint, we have a double jointed hinge here, so you can bring the arm out pretty far, pretty nice bend, especially for a big guy, so that's good. Unfortunately, there's a big gap in the tricep. I don't know why that's there, but it is. Then the other thing about this joint is it's a very obvious joint. Compared those two joints, which one looks better? I would rather have the thicker joint with less gaps, but that's just me. Some people like this one a lot, so I guess that's okay. Personally, I prefer the thicker joint itself, so instead of having the hinge be just this almost 1 centimeter hinge, I would have preferred like 1.5. That takes up more of the space and fills it in a little bit better. But functionally, it's just fine, so that's good. And then for the wrists, we have double ball peg again, and the wrist just snaps on, or the hand just snaps on there, and actually gives us really good range for a big fat wrist like that. So more than enough, and it looks really good, obviously, so that's nice. I like the way they did the wrists. For the torso, I really like this torso also. It leans really far back, although I feel like the sculpt should have gone a little bit higher just to hide that, because you can see right in at the top here, and then on both sides. It goes really far forward, but again, a gap would have been better to not be there. And then it does also go really far to the side, but again, I'm not sure why they left those gaps in there. They could have at least filled it in a little bit, but they didn't. But it does give you really good range, and you get the full swivel and the anatomy. Other than, I guess some people are saying the pecs are a little bit too round. I mean, technically they are, I guess. They probably should be more square shaped, but it still looks really good, and it works well with the posing. I'm pretty happy with that. For the lower torso, all we get is a swivel, and you can see there's kind of like a cutout on each side of his sides, and that's just so that when you turn it, it can lift over the pants, because those are all hard plastic. So that's okay by me, that works out. For the hips, this piece is essentially just a vertical swivel. It goes this way. That's as far back as it goes, and that's as far forward as it goes. So it's kind of limited, actually. I mean, I know it's the Hulk, but only 45 degrees isn't very much. I'm okay with it personally because I think it's a really, really nicely sculpted, nicely engineered joint. Just better range of motion would have been good, but I'm okay with it. I like it because it looks so good. And then the cool thing about this is, because this is just a vertical swivel, we have another joint down here that allows the leg to come out to the side, and that's basically just a hinge with a swivel for the peg down here. So you can get the legs pretty far apart. So if you want to put them in a dynamic pose, just don't do it with the legs going forward, and you should be okay. I'm pretty happy with the hips and thigh swivel and all that. It looks really nice. This one does seem to be kind of gappy over here. I don't know why. You can see it on this one more so than on this one. I might pull that apart and take a peek at that, but it's like that. For the knees, they work pretty well. They're not the best looking knees in the world, but they're definitely not bad. I'm okay with it. They look pretty good, work pretty well. And I like that they continued the paintwork all the way up there. That helps. For the ankles, it's basically just a ball hinge. So we get the ball hinge, it brings the foot forward and back. Doesn't have the greatest range, but I think it's enough. And then it also has the peg at an angle, so you get a little bit of an ankle rocker there, but you can rotate the ball hinge around and get a really nice ankle rocker out of that. So that's pretty good. And then we have a toe hinge, which works pretty well. It's probably a little bit too far back, and he has really long toes, but I'm okay with it because it works out all right. It's effective, so it's not a big deal. So this figure, I should probably mention, since I didn't mention it when we were looking at the paint, I'm a sucker for flat paint jobs, and his skin is all flat, and it looks really, really good, so I like that a lot. Okay, so the figure itself looks really good for the most part, and most of the articulation works really well, so it's an awesome figure for the most part. However, let's look at these two heads, and this is my biggest drawback on this figure. This is obviously the movie Hulk based on the Avengers movie. These head sculpts are really not anywhere near the Hulk from the movies at all. I mean, they're slightly similar, they're reminiscent, but that's about it. Paintwork on them, sure, it looks good. The eyes are done well, the teeth and mouth and everything looks good, but the way the eyebrows are painted, it throws it off. The way the hair is sculpted throws it off, and then the way the eyes, and pretty much just the eyes, I think, I don't know, it's just off. It doesn't look very much like the movie Hulk. If it wasn't based on the movie, they'd be fine. It's a really nice sculpt other than the likeness, so I'm okay with it. If you really are a stickler for likeness, then this is going to drive you insane. If you just want a cool looking Hulk figure, this is it. I mean, this is probably the best Hulk figure out right now. It's a really, really well done Hulk. It's just those few issues, like I'm not sure why they went with this design. It's effective, but it's got problems. Same thing with the elbows and then the face likeness. Otherwise, it's a fantastic figure. It's a lot of fun to pose also, and then it just looks really cool. So I can see this being one of those figures where probably the majority of the people are going to absolutely drool over it, and then the people that are going to point out things like me are going to point out those issues but still say it's awesome. So it's probably one you're going to want to track down. I recommend it. Stick around here for some photos at the end so you can see it in action, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.